We're all waiting for the bell. Good evening, and thank you, and welcome to the May 26th Town Council meeting. I would ask everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the record, I think I did it better in the dress rehearsal, but that's okay. I'll ask for a roll call of the councilors, please.
Allenson.
Here.
Carmody.
Here.
Fishbein.
Here.
Laffin.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Rivard.
Here.
Versace.
Here.
Tata.
Here.
Testa.
Here. Everybody is here. Thank you. I would now ask for a motion on the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve and accept consent agenda items 3A through 3R.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. We now move to there are no items removed from the consent agenda, so we will move to the public question and answer period. Oh, wait. This is why I have a vice. We appointed several people tonight. We appointed Sean Fitzsimmons and Gary Baker as constables. Would you please come forward to be sworn in if you are here?
Just want to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to faithfully discharge according to law your duties as constable of the town of Wallingford to the best of your abilities, to help you God?
Thank you. We have appointments to be made to the Public Celebrations Committee, but there was no time to get it on this agenda. Barbara, I apologize for the confusion. You'll be on the next agenda. You're on it anyway, so your term you don't leave until you're reappointed or replaced. So even though your term expired, you're still a member. But we'll have you at the next agenda for a formal reappointment. Sorry for the confusion, and thank you for showing up. And now we will move on to the public question and answer period. Are there any questions for the council on items that are not going to be? Okay. Then the public question and answer period is over. Item 6, we're at the right time. Go ahead.
Item 6 is to conduct a public hearing to consider and act on the 2026 Neighborhood Assistance Program.
Program planning, please come to the table, or the administration can handle this to explain what this is about.
I don't see it in the backup that I have, but agencies are allowed to solicit donations from businesses, qualified businesses in town, that entitle those businesses to get tax credit for the contributions to those nonprofits. Typically, you see projects that are eligible pursuant to the program. So that's a very summary of what it's about.
Are there any questions from the council? Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I concur. I've been up here for a while. Every year we have that list. Mayor, do you know, were there any additions to that list, any subtractions from that list from what we voted on last year?
My experience is that the list is different every year, but we may very well have seen the same businesses applying, the same nonprofits.
And then what's the time period on this? Not that I want to hold it up, because I usually vote in favor, but it seems that we would be voting on something without knowing who is on the list, and I don't know that that's responsible.
So, actually, because the deadline closed May 22nd, the public hearing should be scheduled for June 9th. So we'll bring this item back to the council for
So
June
should we
9th.
remove this, should we withdraw the motion for now?
There's no motion.
Oh, okay. There wasn't a motion yet. Oh, that's true, it's a public hearing. I apologize.
Excuse me, if you could continue the public hearing, so it doesn't have to be
Right.
redone? Okay?
Oh, so it doesn't have to
Instead
be
of closing it.
renoticed. Yep.
I'd be comfortable with that, and thank the mayor for that information, so.
No, thank you, Councilor Fishbein. So we will just, what's the wording I should use? We should
The public hearing's open, and you should continue it to June 9th.
just, am I recessing it? Am I holding it? I just want to make sure I'm following
So
them.
you've opened up the public hearing, so.
The public hearing will be
You can
continued
do
at
it
the-
by motion to continue the public hearing to whatever that meeting is,
All right.
your next meeting or whatever it is.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion
do.
to continue the public hearing to our next meeting.
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the public hearing on this will be continued to our next meeting. Thank you very much for the clarification. Item 7.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to override the mayor's May 18th, 2026 veto of the 2026-2027 Town Council approved budget.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. For clarification purposes, my understanding is the following, that we passed a budget that was different than the mayor's, and the mayor returned a line item veto of that budget with specific changes. And there are two alternatives before the town council. They are to accept that veto or to override it. We do not have the ability to make line item changes to it. That is already done. It's either the budget we passed or the budget that the mayor presented us with the revisions that he offered via his line item vetoes. If I misrepresented that, I'm open to be corrected. I think I have it right. So that's what's on the agenda. Do we override that veto and go back to our budget, or do we accept the changes the budget made? I'll now open it for discussion from the council. Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first, let me start with, I completely understand the mayor's position in terms of utilizing money from our funds to pay for positions that we're going to create essentially permanently. And the amount of money, reduced from the budget does certainly account for the positions that he chose to not include. And I think the gist of why, at least I'm in favor of the override, kind of comes in a couple of spots. The first one being that, I felt that we collaborated and took a little bit each in terms of cooperation about what it was that we wanted to try to accomplish with the budget. And I felt confident at the end of that process, though it wasn't exactly what I had wanted, but I felt I could agree to it, was because we were focusing on services to the community, making sure that people are safe, and making sure that the building department had enough resources to be able to, perform inspections and things like that. And I'm not trying to insinuate that the cuts to the budget don't take those things into consideration, but there were, I felt really good about it. And to the point that we're taking money from our own account and putting it into the budget to pay for to pay for things, or that's not a good idea. Well, we're already doing that now. even if you count the money that we got from the state, because that we can't count on that money to be here next year. So the 800,000 and change that we get towards education, the additional money that gets offset by the money that we didn't get for from the gambling or however it worked out, 1.2 million. We're not going to have that money next year either. So the argument that we can't do this or we can't do that because next year we're going to have to pay for it with revenue that we would expect to take from taxpayers. Well, yeah, but I think now is the time that we need to figure out what things really look like in terms of what they cost, and fully funding the growth of the fire department as a part of ensuring the safety of our community, as well as creating an environment where people who work in that position feel comfortable going to work, feeling that they are safe, that they are not overworked, that they are not burdened by deadlines and compliance issues and things like that, because they actually have the support. I think it's a holistic approach. And I think what we did with our budget was we tried to address things the best that we could, but we focused on the things that we felt that we needed the most. And so that in part is why one of the reasons why I'm against the override, is because I think what we did was, I think we put a focus on what we should be aiming for goals. And if next year we figure out that we have to come up with more money, well, that's part of it, but we don't lose sight of our goals, the first thing. The second piece is that the reason why I was in favor of the whole thing was because it was the whole thing. To Councilor Tada's effort to go to zero, that also included changes to the amount of revenue that we are expected to take in from both the building department as well as from the fire department. We didn't adjust that in the veto. So the line items to take out those positions from the building department as well as from fire doesn't take into consideration that someone like me said, well, if we're going to be putting more support in, more services in, that will support the generation of more revenue, then that's another reason why I'm against the veto, is because that isn't being taken into consideration. The money that we adjusted to say that these departments will take in more is not omitted from what we are voting on right now. We're only talking about those positions as it relates to the 600,000 and change that comes out of the budget. So our budget does the same, if not more, with the same amount of money from taxpayers, with the caveat knowing that we're going to have to figure out what we do next year, providing that we fill all the positions that we actually create. Because that's the other piece of it too. We have positions that we do not fill every year in every department. So the fact that we create positions to put people in there potentially doesn't even necessarily mean that we're going to spend that money. But what it does is it puts those positions in place at the request of the department and as a result of the study that we did to support our aging infrastructure as a town, the increased need for services, the safety of our veto. For the purposes that I stated, it was a collaborative effort. The amount of money that we put in, $2 million-ish, was approximately the $1.9 million that we had gotten in the prior year in the audit that we took in too much of. So it was an offset of money that we had already taken in a prior year. And the things that we were spending our money on were for the benefit of the community, as well as to make sure that people had the ability to inspect things for the purposes of fire safety, as well as for building code. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Allenson.
So I spent a lot of time thinking about this and kind of mulling it over. And while I do not like the veto necessarily in its entirety, I do think that the prudence to remove the spending from reserves is something that has been a known unknown for me. After, some thought and kind of reviewing my notes, I felt like we weren't given necessarily an accurate or a full list of prioritization as far as some of the positions we added were concerned. I definitely believe that we need to support our fire department with fire inspectors. I would have loved to have both. We are getting one with the vetoed, with the budget that was already vetoed. I wanted to make the clerk full-time for the building department. You know, I'm kind of, you know, from my perspective, I think that with changes in fees, that pays itself and will still generate funding for the general fund. If you know, I know that departments aren't necessarily generating revenue for themselves. I just think that it did comfortably offset for me. So while I know that we're losing on those two things, my biggest concern has been and probably always will be education, and that budget has not been touched. While I do want to see the fire department fully staffed in the future to the needs of the department, there's a part of me that wonders if adding 5 positions within that department and not taking into consideration some of the other department needs, you know, it kind of gives me a lot of pause. I can tell you up until earlier today, I was probably very much for a veto override. And, you know, after asking some questions of the mayor, as far as procedure is concerned, and also from a couple of my co-counselors, I do think that I'm going to support the veto in good faith that we have a better list of prioritized positions in the future. You know, I guess I really don't have much else to say. This isn't to disparage anybody's budget. I just think we spent a lot of time adding positions, and then I've heard from others that, you know, they're prioritized positions, and, you know, the feedback that I've gotten from members of the public have been, you know, this isn't necessarily exactly what was needed. And so my biggest items were within fire inspection. I'm glad that we are still getting a fire inspector in the mayor's vetoed or line item vetoed budget. And I appreciate the work that has gone into this with all of my co-counselors. I think that we've had a better budget season this year than I've experienced. I've enjoyed working on it, and you know, I'm sorry to disappoint anybody with differing expectations, but I just want, I'm going to go with this, and then if I'm proven wrong, then next year is a new year in which I will make different decisions. But I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt at this point. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Councilor Rivard.
Good evening. Everyone always should make their own, you know, choice in every vote. I think that's totally fair. The way I looked at this, and thank you, Mayor, for your thoughtful letter on your position. You know, we went through every single position, you know, in pretty significant and exhaustive detail. We all spent a lot of time. We all concluded that, you know, this was the best foot forward. In my mind, we're looking at, you know, 4 positions that got, you know, targeted for removal. And the mayor, I think, explained his reasons, you know, concern over bond reading, completely understand it, recurring expense versus other types. I feel very comfortable maintaining the position that I took when we voted 7 votes in favor of the budget that the town council proposed. And if I think about the concerns the mayor raised, which are valid, bond rating, we already had the discussion over the unallocated fund balance and that we were comfortable with the position we were at. In fact, we backed off what I think I would have been comfortable with, because for me, if I have cash, sitting somewhere right now, I would like it to be in the pockets of the taxpayers. The mayor's veto maintains the reduced tax payment that the town council proposed, and every person's going to pay the same amount as the town council budget. What is true, though, is we will be 4 less in the fire department for services. I understand that those are recurring, but the other aspect here is, it's a recurring expense. Well, the real question for us is, in the next year, 2 or 3, do we believe we need these positions filled? And I was convinced with the dialogue from the fire department previously that it was the case. Can we maybe kick the can? Okay, but I trust the fire department leadership to make an assessment of where, when, and the right capability person to hire. Maybe that's 3 months from now. But what is true is if these positions aren't approved in the budget, if a good candidate comes along, maybe someone local, maybe someone coming out of training, other towns can gobble up the best candidates if we don't have the opportunity to pull the trigger. So I think there's flexibility for reduced costs to time, for the department to time the hiring of these individuals. And maybe we pick up a few months. But if there's some good candidate who's the best candidate that we want in our department, having these positions approved allows us to go get them. And safety is one of the #1 reasons I think people love Wallingford and move to it. It's probably one of the reasons why we're the best retirement community in the Northeast or whatever. I believe it's because we've never sat back and not thought about the safety of the public. The other thing in the back of my mind is that we saw good data from the fire department and others, including, that public safety concerns, especially medical concerns and fire concerns, are on the rise, especially with an aging population. And we don't want those to turn into crises, and we don't want those to be emergencies when we look back on ourselves that we didn't do the right thing here. So I am comfortable with the override proposal. I stand behind. It's really no different than what was already approved by this council by 7 votes, except that we're 4 less positions. Relative to bond rating, if we overshot on anticipated revenue and or undershot on costs, we will see that and we can make adjustments, and maybe we make adjustments in other areas that I don't think are as impactful. So that's where I stand today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rivard. Up next, Councilor Laffin.
I am not going to support the override. I do appreciate, and I think this was a very well negotiated budget, and by that I mean it was negotiated a lot, full of constant compromise, lots of volleys back and forth. As Councilor Allenson said, there was a lot of good faith participation, and I really value all of that. As you know, I raised consistent concerns, as I have in the past, about a reliance on the general fund. And as much as I love, of all the departments, the fire department, right, and in us putting those positions in, I appreciate the other participant in our dialogue at the negotiating table, the mayor's position. And it does coincide with my fear of leaning. I appreciate Councilor Rivard's comments about, course correcting or whatnot, but I'm afraid we won't see that until it's too late. But I know that we've been told we need these positions. Initially, they weren't going to be in the budget, not all of them anyway. And I think we need to do our work to, A, fix up our fee schedule with our ordinance commission and everything committee for the building department, but also get ourselves ready for recurring expense towards filling these positions, and I'm committed to that. Again, I appreciate all of the work. It was just a well-compromised budget. This process, I don't want to say it wasn't stressful, but it was probably the least stressful that we've had in a long time, I would say. And we have a lot of work to do going forward. And what I can say, where we did get, there are compromises in this budget, but we are going in with this budget with a lower mill rate than we started with. And it may not be exactly as how I wanted to get there, but it's enough for me. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Carmody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not have too much to add, as I think my position was made clear through my vote on the budget. But I too want to commend this council for working together on creative solutions that both save taxpayers money and continue supporting the important needs of Wallingford. This is the first time in many years that the school budget has been fully funded, while also making important investments in public safety. And frankly, I think that's what tonight is about in my mind. Whether we vote yes or no tonight, the mill rate remains the same. I know there are differences of philosophies about the spending of reserves, but I think the real question before us is whether we are going to support these important positions within the fire department this year. And so I will be voting for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would have hoped that the money that the state graciously gave us in excess of what we had anticipated could have gone directly to the bottom line and reduced the tax burden. I did make a motion to have that happen at that meeting, but unfortunately that did not pass. What we're left here with is an action by the administration that we have the ability to address. You know, on its face, I really have to question, and I brought this up to the law department. It's probably why Janice is here. No, she's here for no different reason. You know, I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, if I may, pass out to the council the portion of the charter that has to do with where we are tonight. And you know, I take the position that, and I believe this was the position of Mayor Dickinson also, that the mayor has the ability to veto the budget or not, but does not have the line item veto power that we have here tonight. Now, while that doesn't move my decision, it is page 7 of the charter, section 7, that is relied upon for the proposition that the mayor, the administration, has that power. And you'll see, usually I hand out documents and I don't mark them up, but you know, in my book, I did underline budget ordinance, and clearly that sentence says that the mayor can disapprove of a budget ordinance, which is the entirety of the budget, which is what we have been used to, right? My understanding is that the line item veto power, and while those words don't appear anywhere in the charter, okay, where that proposition comes from is the last 5 lines of this paragraph. And that says, the mayor may disapprove or reduce any item or items in an appropriation, whereupon the approved portion of the appropriation shall become effective unless the disapproved portion is passed by the council over the mayor's veto as provided herein, in which case the entire appropriation becomes effective. What is an appropriation is not defined in the context of the paragraph. And what we have here is, one could argue that the mayor has the ability to attack an appropriation, and if we just say within a budget, but when you attack an appropriation that's within the budget, then you also are affecting revenue. And that authority is not here. So if one was to believe that the mayor, by this operative language, only has the ability to veto an appropriation that appears in a budget, and you are to run down the road with that argument, you have an unbalanced budget because the mayor does not have the ability to offset that with the change in revenue. Now, perhaps, and you know, when I got involved in our charter, back in 2008, I think it was, you know, I sat in the vault downstairs for weeks, got dust all over me looking at the various versions of the charter. The original charter didn't have this language, and I haven't had the time to go back and figure out when it actually got inserted and what was talked about. But clearly, it doesn't say line item veto. And if the drafters had intended the mayor to have that power, you would have merely inserted where I have the underline, budget ordinance or any portion of a budget. That would have been the proper insertion. But they didn't do that. They added these 5 lines that are something, it has to be something different because it deals with appropriation, which could be a midstream something. It could be something the administration comes to us to do something and we maybe change it slightly. That would be an appropriation that would fall under that. But clearly, it doesn't say that the mayor has the ability to line item veto. So, you know, everything done by government is lawful until challenged in court and found to be unlawful, and that's not the road I'm going on this one. But I just want to flag it. And I do, you know, Janice and I talked about it briefly, and, you know, I think it's a discussion to be had, and perhaps with the next charter revision, that gets worked out. But clearly, that is not what the language says. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Councilor Risacci.
Thank you. I am also in favor of overriding the veto. I think that Wallingford residents, they expect the government to do 2 things really well: protect their financial stability and protect their physical safety. And this budget demonstrated that we can do both. The concern about long-term stability is valid, but every member of this council understands that we cannot operate recklessly or jeopardize Wallingford's financial stability. But that's not what happened here. We were careful in everything that we looked at. We looked in every position. We looked at everything together and in a very bipartisan way. As I said previously, I'm very proud of the work that we did together. Wallingford consistently closes each fiscal year with a substantial excess surplus, as Councilor Reynolds discussed, often approaching or exceeding the $1.9 million annually. It's not a one-time windfall. It is a recurring pattern of conservative budgeting and stable financial performance. So the question before us is not whether we should protect the town finances. The question is, what is the purpose of maintaining strong reserves if not to responsibly invest in essential public safety services when the need is clearly demonstrated? These positions were not luxury additions. They were targeted investments in fire and EMS and building department staffing at a time when Wallingford's population is aging, EMS utilization continues to rise, call volumes and service demands continue to increase, and vacancies have already existed for extended periods. You cannot permanently balance a budget by delaying critical hires while simultaneously expecting emergency response systems to absorb growing demand indefinitely. At some point, the bill is going to come due, either through staffing investment now or through slower response times, burnout, overtime costs, recruitment challenges, and diminished services later. Bond agencies do not simply look at reserve balances in isolation. They evaluate whether municipalities are responsibly managing operational risks and maintaining essential services. A strong bond rating is very important, but residents cannot call a bond rating during a medical emergency. A town that chronically underinvests in emergency response infrastructure while its population ages is not demonstrating prudence, it's deferring responsibility. The mayor is correct that budgets must be viewed beyond a single year, but that principle cuts both ways. If we know EMS demand is increasing, if we know our population is aging, if we know public safety staffing pressures are growing statewide, then failing to plan for those realities today only create larger operational and financial pressures tomorrow. This council made a deliberate choice together to use a portion of recurring excess surplus to strengthen essential services while still maintaining fiscal stability. That is not irresponsible. That is forward-looking governance. The most important point in this entire discussion is the mill rate is staying the same. Residents are not receiving a tax reduction because these positions were cut. So the question becomes, if taxpayers are paying the same amount regardless, why do we intentionally provide fewer services? The council already protected taxpayers by lowering the proposed tax increase. Now the question is whether we are willing to protect service levels and public safety, because keeping the same mill rate while reducing services is not efficiency. It is simply asking residents to accept less for the same cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Councilor Tata.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't think this was where we were ending up tonight, but so the two MSOs was something that was vetoed, and that was something I had advocated for with my proposal. We have two now, so two of the shifts have that, two of the 4 shifts do not. And I had made mention then that that's really not a good system. When the fire chief asked for 4 positions, that's really kind of like any other department asking for 1 because they're 24/7. So 4 positions covers that role 24/7. When they only have 2 of them, it's only there half the time. So I had mentioned when I had made that proposal to fund the MSOs, and I had taken it from capital, which is not where we are now, but I had said that, you know, we have to hope if we only have 2 of the MSOs that the big incident happens on the day that one of those 2 is there, and not the day that we don't have that person there. And then last week, between the mayor's veto letter and tonight's vote, that's exactly what happened. So there was a serious accident on I-91. Happened to be the shift, luckily, that the MSO was on. So we had our MSO there that day. Because he's in a fly car, he was able to get there faster. He got there in approximately 7 minutes. The person in the car, I believe, was unresponsive. I could be wrong, but she did ultimately need to be intubated. They did RSI, which is something that already we do that's very high level that not every town can offer. The MSO got there about 8 minutes before the first engine got there. So for that woman last weekend, if that had been a shift that we did not have the MSO, if that accident had happened the next day or the day prior, I can pretty positively say she would not be alive right now. And she is alive right now, last I heard. When we talked about the MSOs in creating them, we were talking about hypotheticals, and we would say, you know, what if, or what is that going to do? And Chief Buck made a good case for them. But it's not a hypothetical anymore. We have hard data now that this is working. And thank God that it was on the day that that MSO was here. 7 minutes versus 8 minutes when you're in a life-threatening situation is the difference between somebody being alive and being dead. And we can get that tonight. We can get those 2 MSOs and other positions, as Councilor Versace was saying, without having any tax effect. 0 tax impact, and we get that. So without trying to sound dramatic, I would ask everybody, is that worth somebody's life? Is that worth that lady who had that accident? Was that worth it to have him there and able to get there that quickly, the fact that she's still alive today? So I would just ask everybody to please just consider that we now have that data on those positions. And I know those aren't the only ones being considered, but those are 2 that are pretty important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council at the moment? Okay, I have a few things to say. I try to avoid always bringing up my personal experience with the Wallingford Emergency Services, because as much as I want to say, thanks, sometimes it could be a little bit self-indulgent. I don't mean to do that. But you brought up a story. And my story is that a few years back, I had a problem. I think it was on a Sunday night. And it just so happened that, and I apologize for getting numbers wrong and stations wrong, because I'm an old man and I forget stuff. So I apologize. But I know it was the volunteer company up in North Farms just happened to be doing their training. It was a training night. So a group of people were there and they were training. And I had a problem. And I needed a response. And it was a busy night. And had they not been all there, my response might have been a little slower, certainly would not have been as well attended. So it's kind of a similar situation. There were people available on a night where they may not have been for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes. And because of that, certainly the no, I'm not going to be beeped. The career paramedics that responded immediately were the ones who, gave me the care I needed, but it was the additional people that were able to respond right away. It led to me getting probably faster care than I would have, and it got me where I needed to go. And for better or for worse, it's the reason I'm here talking to you tonight. So I'm always aware of the intimate impact of staffing, proper staffing. At the same time, I realize that you may never be there for everything that might happen. But I do need to clarify one thing, and this is very important, because there was a lot of talk generated online, especially about the story that was in the Record Journal. And it was my quote that led a lot of people to reach conclusions. And I think it's important, because it's important to me, since I've been in this role, to try to, really push for openness and just tell it like it is. And I commented to the reporter that I think the question to me was, well, if the mayor's vetoed these positions, do you think that, it's probably something like, do you think that threatens or whatever public safety? And so, the political thing to do would be, yeah, let's throw the mayor under the bus. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, let's do that. That wasn't the case. So what I tried to explain was, I had talked briefly to the mayor about this at our agenda meeting, and we didn't go into it too much detail, but he said something to the effect of, well, I gave it a lot of thought. I did talk to the chief about it and explain my position to him, and I let him know that, this is how I felt, and that I think that so much, we can handle this soon enough down the road. That was it. He never said to me, the chief said, oh, no problem. That's important, because the implications of the story was that the mayor talked to the chief, and the chief said, yeah, it's okay. No big deal. And we all know that that's how the story sounded. And it's all my fault because of what I said. So let's be straight about this. This is what it's like up here. You talk to the press, you say something, and usually it's not a big deal. But this impacted the mayor and impacted the the fire chief. It made it sound like the mayor talked to the fire chief. The fire chief said, nah, Mayor, I'm okay with these cuts. Everything's okay. That's simply not what happened. I'm not going to say how the chief feels. I don't know. I'm not going to say how the mayor feels. I don't really know. But I wanted to be clear that what I said led to the reporter writing it in such a way that made it sound that way. So let's just discard that. That didn't happen. Okay? And I think it's important for these two professionals that people understand that it was the way I said it and the way the reporter heard it that led to the way it was written. So I hope that means something. I really do. I do have to make a comment on Councilor Fishbine's argument about the charter. And I see where he's going. Because to me, it very well could mean the mayor can, that the lines he was referring to were in reference to general appropriations and not a budget appropriation. I believe that's where he was going. And I can see that. This is the kind of thing where sometimes we need a little clarification. But I don't believe tonight we could settle whether this is a misunderstanding of the misinterpretation of the charter, but it's not a bad idea that we maybe get a little bit more clarification from legal and others. That's the way I want this council to work. Maybe we'll look at that and say, you know what, I think you might be right on that one. So I've talked on that. I talked on my public comments. I hope those are clear enough. As I usually have the luxury now as chair to allow the discussions to go on and not have to make too many arguments on my own behalf. But I will only say this. We did, and I as a counselor, voted for the budget that we changed. We felt strongly about it. I respect, that was the point I was trying to make, by the way, in the story. I respect the mayor's position in choosing to cut back a little bit because again, in my opinion, I hate to use that term, in my opinion, I believe he felt these positions will be funded soon enough. But this is not the right time. So I was simply trying to show respect for that perspective, as opposed to throwing him under the bus and implying that he didn't care about public safety. Because we've been playing that game for too damn long. And it's time to stop playing politics like that. Respect one another's positions and then fight strongly for the one you believe in. And I disagree with the mayor wholeheartedly, but I respect what he did. I think that those of us who voted for the budget still feel very strongly that those positions were important enough to do what we did. So this, in reality, I don't see this argument about the positions. It's about how much money we're taking out of the reserves to fund those positions. I think there's a twofold thing going on here. It's the philosophy of how much can we comfortably, responsibly apply to the budget from the reserves. And we felt that we could do it with that additional amount in order to fund the additional fire department positions. So that's where we're at. I don't think voting one way or the other should in any way reflect demonization of anyone, questioning anyone's motives. I think it's just trying to show respect for each individual's consideration of all of the considerations, all of the implications. And I think that's where we're at. However we go, I do not want to be party to implying something publicly that was incorrect and speaking for two very responsible, respected, and intelligent public servants who can speak for themselves. And that would be the chief and the mayor. So, okay, I've gone on long enough, but I can do that because I'm the chair. Anyway, I feel strongly that I support an override of that veto because I support the budget I supported 2 weeks ago. That's all. I respect the mayor's position, but I disagree with it. And we'll see where the vote goes. But I wanted those things to be clear. And I appreciate your indulging me. So at this point, unless there's more from the council, I will open it up to the public. But Councilor Tata, please.
Will we just hear the motion again?
I believe the motion was to override the mayor's veto.
So
It's the only motion we could have.
So an affirmative vote, a yes vote, is to override.
Yes, and to return to the budget we passed 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's only one potential motion on the board. Would anyone from the public like to speak? Yes, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Jim Buck, Fire Chief, and good evening, everyone from the council. So, obviously, you have a difficult decision and a lot that's being discussed tonight, and I appreciate all of the deliberation that's going on, and I know even those that aren't in support of an override of the veto, it seems clear to me are supportive of additional positions. But I want to talk a little bit more about our shared responsibility. So if you may recall in the budget presentation I made, we talked about you may be the first link in the chain of survival. And the chain of survival, actually Councilor Tata helped explain it a little bit tonight with that story about the medical and safety officer on scene. That chain of survival in a department that does 82% medical calls and nearly 60% of those are ALS is really essential. And so when I use that phrasing at the beginning of the budget presentation, it was intentional because that chain of survival relies upon the resources we are bringing to the scene. And you are certainly the first link in the chain of survival because you have the ability to provide those resources for our department to move forward in our best posture. You know, my responsibility in the shared duties that we all share, including the mayor as public safety director, is my share of it is to inform and plan. And that information that I've provided you, I've now had 2 opportunities to do so with 2 budget presentations. And they've been quite similar, actually. So I want to go back to last year slightly because at that time we didn't call it the medical and safety officer position. It was transitioning out of the EMS lieutenant phrasing that had been used. But I asked for 4. And I asked for 4 for a very important reason, to put 1 on each shift because it's an ALS provider that's responding to each call. At that time, the mayor authorized the 2nd position to begin in January. In addition to that, and I want to point this out because I think it's really important, the council voted to increase staffing $200,000. I believe it was Councilor Tata made that motion. That was for additional positions in the fire department. Those efforts were stymied as we moved forward through the year, and unfortunately those positions were not articulated, so they weren't able to be funded. But the council that was seated at that time, voted for that. It was a unanimous vote, I recall it, and that was a really important step forward for the department. To this day, we still do not have 4 MSOs. So in this year's budget, I added what we now call the MSOs, the medical and safety officer positions, to increase to the number of 4. To add to the one we had, the one the mayor added last year, and then to bring the other 2 up. I also asked for additional positions, and those positions are equally important I was asked to prioritize them, and this may be where some of that confusion about priority comes from that was discussed tonight. And it's difficult for me to say this position is more important than that position because they are all boots on the ground positions. Every position we're talking about is one that is impacting public safety on a daily basis. So when you look at these positions and you look at what is a medical and safety officer, so we heard tonight about the medical and safety officer being an ALS provider, advanced life support, an additional ALS provider that helps us. Now, where have we heard this before? This really comes out of the study that took place. So I walked in the door. There was already a desire to have a study from this council about the fire department, the department I now lead. This study, we cooperated fully. We worked very well with them to give them the data they needed, the information they needed. They concluded that we have a practice that is not best practice as it relates to the ALS paramedic leaving the engine. So we have 3 engine companies, that is 3 ALS paramedics. When that ALS provider leaves the engine, that reduces the staffing on the engine. So just so everyone's clear of how that works and what that position means. The medical and safety officer, being an ALS provider, is able to intercept in the way that Councilor Tata described in the call that she related, in a way that can protect that staffing or can act as a force multiplier and provide additional resources to the scene. So in case there was any question about what that position entails, that's part of it. But it's medical and safety officer, and I want to go into that a little bit because safety officer is a very important part of this as well. Because this is the one position that actually impacts every firefighter in this department. And we are full of, every firefighter in this department is a professional firefighter. They meet certification standards, they take annual physicals, they are professionals. They have passed all the tests and training required to be a firefighter. Some of them are career staff and paid, and some of them are volunteers. But every one of them, per NFPA 1750, requires a safety officer on scene at a major incident. So we've talked a lot about medical calls. At a significant incident, that is when firefighters get hurt. If you look at nearly every single NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, report that deals with injured or line of duty deaths, it mentions the lack of an early safety officer at a major incident. That is a significant gap that we have. So as we do a gap analysis, that is a gap that we currently have that we need to fill. The medical safety officer fills that role. It's essential. So we talked about a call that was on I-91. Just yesterday, I received an email about the MSO who came to a scene where a police officer had started CPR. The medical and safety officer immediately went into action, was able to assist them prior to the arrival of other fire department resources. And through the efforts of that medical safety officer and then the following resources, we were able to achieve ROSC, the return of spontaneous circulation, which means they had their pulse back. And that patient is alive today because of the early intervention of the medical safety officer. That occurred yesterday. I received that email just prior to going to the Memorial Day ceremony. The inspector position, that is another essential position for public safety. It ensures the proper ability to work with our residents, our landlords, and our business owners to facilitate. This goes hand in hand with the position that was in the building department. That was also cut. That position in the building department is a force multiplier for that building department to enable that building department to be more efficient, more productive, and to ease the logjam of inspections. So your budget 2 weeks ago prioritized the staffing we're talking about now. You voted for it. This was your budget. I appreciate that support. So many municipalities look at public safety as simply a cost center. And I feel certain with your vote from 2 weeks ago, you don't feel that way. You understand that there are costs associated with providing public safety, but you valued the impact of these positions. I appreciate that support from 2 weeks ago. I certainly wish to have that support tonight. So the choice is, it seems, override the veto to fund the positions or ensure additional money is retained in the fund balance. So let's talk a little bit about the fund balance. So a lot has been discussed about the $1.9 million from last year's budget that was returned to the fund balance. So it helped boost that up. Certainly you want to budget wisely and use the expended funds, expend the funds that are budgeted to your department. Well, last year we found ourselves in a couple unique spots, and one was a very low instance of injuries that resulted in usage of replacement pay. And in addition to that, I was new to the department. So there were some spending initiatives that I held back on because I felt it was better to be strategic with our spending rather than just spend the money to spend the money. So you guys reference $1.9 million, but I can reference $982,000. That's how much of that 1.9 was fire department unexpended funds. So remember this, as you're looking at whether this $600,000 should go back into the fund balance, the fire department, through proper budgeting, returned $982,000 last year of that 1.9. And I'm sure Mr. Senator would be happy to corroborate that information. So I think that's really important that you're able to understand the full picture of the dollars you're talking about saving and not putting into public safety were actually saved through the public safety budget. Furthermore, I want to tell you a little bit about these positions and how they would be strategically implemented in the department. July 1, we would not have these people in their seats. It's not how it works. You discussed it earlier that there's oftentimes positions that remain open for some period of time. My calculations show that with a normal process of promotional for the inspector position and the medical safety officer positions going on board, as well as the firefighter and then the backfill of new firefighters into those positions, additional fund balance savings, so in other words, unexpended salary and benefits. So if you look at the table that you received in the letter that showed the roughly $600,000+ that you would save this year by making this decision to not reaffirm your budget, of that, over $200,000 of it would not be expended with this strategic implementation. So really, a third of the savings you're looking to achieve, you would have the positions and a third of those savings. So I think, the choice is clear. We all have public safety responsibilities. You have a role in this. I would certainly strongly encourage that. And I think I would just leave it as this. You have many important votes. A lot of them have to do with dollars and cents, and we get caught up into that thinking, the dollars and cents. But how many times do you have a budget vote that directly impacts public safety in this way? You have an opportunity tonight, and again, it's to reaffirm your budget. You're not breaking new ground here. To reaffirm your budget, stand behind what you voted for 2 weeks ago, and you make a significant difference in public safety in this town. And I'm here if you have any questions, but that concludes my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else from the public like to speak? Please identify yourself at the microphone. What's up?
It's only about the fire department budget right now.
Well, it's about, yes. See
what happens after 34 years of marriage? Still wrong.
Just say yes, dear, and sit down. I knew that after 1 year of marriage. All right. Anyone else like to speak about this? Well, no, not necessarily. This discussion overall is about the vote to override the mayor's veto. So if you have other considerations about that. It's not just about the fire. No? Okay, thank you for clarifying. Anyone else? Okay, I will bring it back to the council. Councilor Fishbein.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to respond to the comments that you made very eloquently before we went to the public. I do agree. This is not a vote on public safety per se. It's the effect. But, one of the things that the revised budget by the council did was it restored $600,000 plus. It was like $650,000, I think, to the Board of Education. That was a priority. We've heard a lot about priorities here tonight. So, the council decided that it was going to, in its revised budget, to not only take the $800,000 that we got from the state, but also to take more money from reserves and restore, $650,000 to the Board of Ed. I wish we were sitting here tonight with the power under the charter to rethink that and to, readjust that to fund these positions. But at the end of the day, money is finite. And, Mr. Chairman, what you were talking about is, the real question is, do we support taking more money out of reserves? That's ultimately the thing. And, watching Mayor Dickinson over there for years and years and years, and we fought him on that, and we are, in this budget, taking out more reserves than I ever remember before the council even added to that. And just to be clear, I voted against the budget that, that the council approved 2 weeks ago. And that was one of my reasons, is I think we're going over and above, and we are funding from reserves operational expenses, which is a first time for this town. I don't think we've ever done that, because that was always the line. You don't start with the new year at a negative. And we're at a significant negative with this budget as approved. But I do agree with you. It's not, I support the fire department. I support the positions. But it's all about priorities. So I wish we could take some of that money back from the Board of Ed to fund these positions, but we just don't have that power. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For argument's sake, I just want to point out that we amended the revenue projection by $100,000 for ambulance. That's still in our budget, and we also changed the building revenue to. We increased the building revenue projection by $150,000. While I realize we're going to be changing fees and things like that, I just want to point out that the budget that we're voting on. The budget that we're voting on, the amended budget we're voting on, isn't the same thing as what we did, because we did more with the same amount of money. The only difference was we took some of our own and put it in there. But part of what we did was we offset it by anticipating more revenue, which, again, we're taking departments and we're saying you're the same, but now we're going to expect to get more money from you. So I just want to point that out. And two, just, again, to just, I can certainly respect how things progress and change, and everybody has a right to their opinion. But I do think that when we walked out of here and voted on this budget, it was done in good faith, and it was done with the intent of fully committing to what we think our town needs in terms of safety in particular. So I just wanted to, reiterate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Risacci.
So this is my first budget, and it really was, as I've said before, a pretty great experience with all of the counselors. I think some of it is, I just wanted to, I am a little bit disappointed that we agreed as a majority of this council that this was the responsible budget and the best thing to do for the town. And now we're shifting, and there's no tax changes. We're gonna get less services. I do think that, you know, it is a little bit disappointing, and I hope, you know, it's not that, you know, we voted as a council, but no, always there's the backup of the mayor being able to veto, because that doesn't feel like a collaborative way to work. And I think we all went into this in good faith and believed that this was the best budget for the town. I'm not sure what changed, because again, the mill rate that we reduced is now staying the same, but we're getting less services. And I just don't understand the rationale behind that. So being it my first time, you know, it's a little bit frustrating, because I think we had a good faith effort to work together to do what's best for the town. And now it feels like we're waffling, and it's just disappointing. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on the council? All right, so what we have before us is a motion to vote to override the mayor's line item veto changes to the budget that was passed by the town council. And I think we all understand what's going on here. Sorry, I have to clarify one more thing. I think again, in that story, I was thinking 50,000, because I believe that was the amount for the clerk. And I implied to the reporter that the 50,000 was the amount that had been vetoed for the Golden Fox Theater. I believe that amount was actually just 5,000. I just want to make sure that any confusion I caused is corrected. So, if there are no other discussions, I will call for a roll call vote on the motion to override the mayor's veto of our budget.
Allenson?
Yes.
Carmody?
Yes.
Fishbein?
No.
Laffin?
No.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Rivard?
Yes.
Versace?
Yes.
Tata?
Yes.
Testa?
Yes. So that makes the vote 7-2, and according to charter, 7 votes are required to override a veto. So the motion has passed, and the budget that will go forward into the following year will be the budget that was passed by the town council 2 weeks ago, let's just say. Thank you so much for everybody for your reasoned and considered discussion of this, and we'll move on now. Item 8, we have some executive sessions. I will let everybody know. We have some executive sessions to go through, and then, which I don't believe should take an extremely long amount of time, but then we will have item 13 at the end, which is the discussion on the Simpson Court outdoor dining. So if you were here for that, don't worry, it won't be too long. We appreciate it, but at the moment, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session, and for those, we will have to ask that the room be, everybody leave.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-200-6D and 1-225F for a discussion regarding the possible purchase of real property, and pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-225F and 1-206B regarding strategy and negotiations with respect to the following tax appeals. Oh, sorry. FHA Silver Pond Limited Partnership versus Town of Wallingford, Antonio Scotto et al. Versus Town of Wallingford, and Antonio and Megan Scotto versus Town of Wallingford.
All right, is there a second?
That would be me.
And before we vote, you were removing something.
I removed number 8.
The what?
I removed number 8.
You removed number 8. Okay, thank you. So we're only doing this in regard to the tax appeal matters as specified in item 9. I would, is there, everybody, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are in executive session. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask everyone to leave.
That's
All right, the bell went off. I'm going to trust Tom that it's real this time. So I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
so moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in agreement?
Aye.
Aye. Never said it that way. Anyone opposed? Okay, so we are out of executive session. We are back to the meeting. We will move on to item 10, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve settlement in the pending tax appeal matter of FHA Silver Pond Limited Partnership versus Town of Wallingford as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I was an aye. All right, motion's passed unanimously. Item 11, please.
I make a motion to approve a settlement in the pending tax appeal matter of Antonio Scotto et al. Versus Town of Wallingford as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item 12.
I make a motion to approve the settlement in the pending tax appeal matter of Antonio and Megan Scotto versus Town of Wallingford as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 13.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will make a motion, but I had a few things I wanted to say first.
All right, we'll just announce what the agenda item is. I would appreciate it, and then we'll have a discussion before motions.
Discussion and possible action regarding Simpson Court outdoor dining.
Second.
No, there's no
Wasn't
motion.
a motion.
So we have talked about this ad nauseum, and I was hesitant to bring this up again this year because of that. But I continue to hear from individuals around town how much they want to see extended outdoor dining again in Simpson Court. And I continue to believe expanding outdoor dining in Simpson Court is a smart investment in the future of our town center and for the overall vitality of Wallingford. Across our state and across the country, communities have increasingly recognized that vibrant public spaces help create stronger local economies. Study after study has shown that pedestrian-friendly downtowns with outdoor dining, public gathering spaces, and active streets attract more visitors, increase foot traffic, support small businesses, and encourage additional private investment. The Brookings Institution found that investments in public spaces in downtown activation improve economic activity, strengthen small business districts, and help create a stronger sense of place within communities. The International Downtown Association has similarly found that thriving downtown districts generate economic benefits for municipalities because they concentrate activity, visitors, commerce, and community life into one central area. And honestly, we know this from experience. People are drawn to places that feel active and alive. They want to walk through a downtown where people are outside, where restaurants are busy, and where public spaces are being used. Outdoor dining helps create that energy. It encourages people to stay longer, visit multiple businesses, and spend more time in the community. Importantly, the benefits extend beyond the individual restaurants participating. A more vibrant downtown supports nearby retail, increases visibility for local businesses, and improves the overall perception of the town center and helps strengthen Wallingford's identity as a destination. Downtowns are different from other commercial areas because they function as the civic and social heart of a community. When people think of a town, they often think about its downtown first. The experience people have there shape how they view the entire community. This is why communities throughout Connecticut continue making investments in walkability and outdoor public spaces. I believe expanded outdoor dining in Simpson Court aligns with that vision and can help create a downtown environment that is more welcoming and more economically vibrant for residents, visitors, and businesses alike. So we've talked about this many times before, and I know there's not an appetite for there to be an expense to the town. The Department of Public Works estimates that it would cost approximately $800 to install the concrete blocks, an additional $800 to remove them. We've also been given by the town assessor that the value for the parking spots would be $150 per spot per month. And so you're aware, the police department will adjust the handicapped spots so there remains handicap parking accessibility in Simpson Court. And as has been discussed before, the concrete barriers would need to be removed before Celebrate Wallingford. So with that, and certainly open to feedback, I will make the following motion. I move that we permit up to 8 parking spaces in Simpson Court to be closed off for outdoor dining between June 1st and September 30th. Those parking spaces shall be rented at a fee of $150 per space per month, and the businesses who utilize this space shall pay the Department of Public Works for work hours involved in the installation and removal of the concrete barriers.
Second.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add
Yes.
one more thing. And I don't know if this is going to require a motion later on, but I do think it's important that we establish a committee to review downtown outdoor dining and parking more broadly. The goal would be to look at the long-term vision for these efforts and explore what makes sense moving forward, as I know there's been a great deal of discussion about potential long-term improvements in Simpson Court beyond and increasing opportunities downtown as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I will certainly entertain establishing an ad hoc committee to do that. All right, so the motion's been made, and moving into this, I wanted to be sure that whatever we were moving tonight was adequate, and it sounds like it is. We are not discussing the existing outdoor dining ordinance. We're not discussing an amendment to that. Nothing we are discussing has to do with the existing outdoor dining ordinance. This is a special action by the town council to do as moved. With that being said, I will open it up to the town council. Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I note there's no backup in our packet, so what I'm hearing is terms of a lease of sorts. Is it anticipated that there would be a lease, because you can't just on the fly have an agreement like this? That's my first question. The second question is, I don't think that we have the authority to do this without a recommendation from the administration. That's usually, when we get a request to use property or something like that, that's vetted by the administration puts it, makes it part of the packet, so on and so forth, and I'm not aware, as there is no backup in our packet, so have we gotten past that hurdle also? Those are my first two questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Who's speaking? Yes, Mr. Mayor. Hi.
There's history to this having happened in the past, so the administration didn't feel compelled to take a position. So what I would say is that in addition to exploring downtown parking, that the council consider looking for properties similarly situated adjacent publicly owned space to determine, beyond the downtown, to determine if there's a program should be warranted. I think government is better suited if it does more to look at other opportunities than it is to look at an individual situation. So I would urge the council to consider if this is a path that we're going to continue down, to look at a program that considers other establishments adjacent public property. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So that addresses the administration, and I just, the advent of this happening at all was actually an executive order from the governor, which permitted, because you couldn't go inside restaurants during COVID, and I believe either we adopted it or the mayor put it in place. The extension thereof, though, I thought was initiated by the administration, and we blessed it, so to speak. I could be wrong there, but that was my recollection. So do we know, is there a lease that we're going to get dropped on us here tonight that we're supposed to be considering?
These are the parameters of the agreement that I'm putting forth. And then, I don't know, Mayor, would the administration, if this passes, enter into an agreement?
If the council's inclined to go forward, the law department should formalize an agreement.
Okay. Well, I thank you for that. I guess because I hear an awful lot from downtown merchants that are concerned about, well, the effect on their business from not having the parking spaces, and then the ability of them to utilize that as well. I mean, I had proposed in one iteration of this that the area be sectioned off, and that, Archie Moore's have like 4 tables there, and, and Knuckleheads have 4 tables there, because it's our property, and we want to be fair to everyone. But that was not amenable to the powers that be. So, the concern is that the benefit that is being talked about here is not the benefit for all downtown restaurants. It's utilization of town property for essentially one restaurant, which I don't know that is the appropriate way to go about this. We had talked about having, we get food trucks around town that just like pop up. It had been suggested, since we own Simpson Court, why not have a food truck day in there, which would balance out those entities that don't have brick and mortar and that want to, pay taxes and would want to utilize this property. So, I don't know. Those are my comments for now. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Versace.
So I hear what you're saying, Councilor Fishbein. One of the ideas I had been sort of throwing around is, could we not use that property in front of the old police department, put some tables there, have the DJ and everybody that can come there. It's still that same atmosphere. People can get takeout from any restaurant they want and go over to that area, that common area. We're not using it right now, and it's in a perfect space. Is that something that we could do? Do we have to get any sort of special ordinance? Is it just the council's going to vote on it and say that's a good idea? Then we'll continue with the committee. The proposal that Councilor Carmody is talking about was for 1 year anyway, and then we would have a committee with recommendations at a certain time. I think that I personally would go there probably almost every Thursday. It was really fun atmosphere, and I think we're talking about wanting to have that fun atmosphere where everyone comes while also balancing fairness for the other businesses. And right now, that's a centralized, unused space. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a possibility. I don't know what the legal ramifications are, or if that's something that we can just do because it's our land. So I just wanted to put that out as a potential possibility.
Well, I will say that it is something we could just do. If you wanted to talk about the formality of it, how we would do it would require the administration, and basically what you're suggesting is, can we have a regular block party in front of the Armory? We already have the block parties. So, I mean, this would involve probably Wallingford Center Inc., maybe not. It could involve Park and Rec, probably, who knows? It could involve any number of people. So that's the type of stuff that would and should be discussed by an ad hoc committee that has been suggested. So if we're going to talk about, here's what we can't do, in my opinion. We want to entertain this discussion. But if we say, I have another idea, instead of this, let's do this. Now you're in the world of anything's possible. And you can't just throw out ideas. I don't mean you're doing that. I'm saying in general. We can't just throw out ideas and see what happens and expect it to work out. So that would be the reason a study committee would be appropriate, to talk about any and all possibilities for utilizing town property for the benefit of public celebrations. And there's committees that would want to be involved. There's a lot that would be involved. So, I'm inclined to appoint an ad hoc committee to do that. So if anyone has any ideas and suggestions other than what has been proposed tonight, that's how it's going to be handled. It's going to be handled as a holistic discussion of all the possibilities. Someone says, I want food trucks. Well, I'd say, I think food trucks should be down in the Brothers lot. Someone might say, well, that's better than this, blah, blah, blah. If we put a bunch of food trucks in Simpson Court, I would expect every restaurant on North Main Street to come and hit me in the head, so that would be, and that would be understandable. And I think it'd be ridiculous to put food trucks uptown. Now, does that mean we can't possibly go into the Wooding Caplet lot and make that a public celebration type area? That's different. You know what I mean? There are people that would really like that. So there's a lot of ideas that can pop up, but we would know, there's no way it would make sense to throw them out, discuss them, and try to approve them at a meeting such as this. So anything and everything that's an alternative or an addition to what Councilor Carmody moved will be discussed by a committee to come. So we're back to whether we want to do this. I understand Councilor Fishbein's question about, the motion, or you mentioned we should have some type of remuneration for, in other words, for renting those spots. And that has to be worked out. It also sets a precedent. Right?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps
Please do.
Having someone make an offer with a lease that the council could address rather than us propose something that we don't know in a vacuum what we're talking about?
Yeah, I don't see us solving this evening, but I think we know what we need to do in the relatively short period of time to come. We can have this resolved in 2 weeks, but I think we do need to come up with some type of agreement that might be acceptable to everybody, or not. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. But I think no, I'm done. Anyone else? Councilor Rivard.
This may just be more for my, first of all, absolutely happy that my colleagues have opened up this discussion and that we'll have some sort of ad hoc committee to look at the big picture associated with outdoor dining, because I think it is possibly an economic driver. My questions are twofold, and I think it's just history on this. What were the main reasons why past council maybe did not approve this? And second, when it was discussed at the time, was it discussed doing something dedicated in dining hours versus daytime hours at the time? And if it was, what was the reason not to? And then what was the reason for not doing it for the whole lot? And I'm guessing that was all discussed in the past. It'll help me inform my support or not of this. My personal first intuition is I am absolutely for enhanced outdoor dining to benefit the downtown, as well as I'd love at some point, I think the mayor alluded to it, down by the old train station, maybe, gazebo kind of stuff or whatever, if we can, to support other businesses. But that's long-term, and that's committee, and you made that clear, Mr. Chairman. But those couple items would help me understand, the history on this, since it feels like it's been talked about several times.
Right. It would be inappropriate for me to try to explain the reasoning used by those that voted against it in the past. Some of those councilors are still here. They are free to share that. Some are no longer here. So I think during the course of this discussion, maybe we'll hear about it. But what you're looking for, not sure. Unless you get it from the people that are still here, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, no, understood. I mean, I did my own research, but
Councilor Rollinson.
So I am one of the people who isn't for this, and the reason that I am not for it and haven't been in the past is that the way that it's designed currently, it really only benefits a very small number of businesses. And we have talked about the possibility of doing expanded outdoor dining several times, and we have not yet come up with that actual committee. I am here with the same opinion because, again, I think that until we address the actual restaurant community at large, we are driving business uptown where we have many businesses downtown that also could benefit from having some expansion of their space. Whether that's, at $150 a parking spot a month, it's like negligible, but we have to also consider hearing from our risk manager to understand the insurance that comes along and the risk that comes along from the town's perspective of allowing this to allowing public dining on or private dining on public property, regardless of whether we have a lease. I think it would be a better discussion to take this up next year after we've had a year of a committee meeting and actually have like a kind of a timely decision on this. I think at this point, Memorial Day is past. We're starting to come up against, so we are digressing in this conversation to talk about what the possibility could be for a future project to expand outdoor dining. But the thing that is really we are really voting on tonight is to the benefit of 2 to 3 businesses in the center in the uptown area. And for me, while I do understand all of the reasons for that supporters of this have conveyed to us, it's not driving, this isn't driving business to Michael's or to Knuckleheads or to Archie Moore's. It's certainly not going to drive business to Flavio's or to Vuelvo. If anything, it may detract from it, where they don't have those opportunities because of their location. And one could argue both sides of, well, it's not their fault that they're not in that location. But the reality is that everybody has made the decision to be where they are and to use the space that they have. And I am all for a broader discussion if we can somehow make this equitable. But in my opinion, this is not equitable the way that it is. This has nothing to do with not supporting some restaurants. It has to do with supporting all restaurants and giving everybody kind of the opportunity to buy into the spots that sit in front of their location, kind of like New Haven does with, more permanent, with the blocks being decorated. I think Councilor Fishbein actually made an extensive presentation in one of these about, having actual secure blocks like New Haven does so that people can't just drive through them, and also mitigating that risk because there is a risk involved. And so for those reasons, I have been a no, and I will continue to be a no until we make it an equitable opportunity. Again, I fully support all of the businesses in Wallingford. It has nothing to do with one versus the other. I'm trying to reconcile this. How do I give additional space that isn't available to others to a few? And I don't disagree with anybody who says that the presentation was vibrant and beautiful. I don't disagree with anybody who says that this probably drove business to certain areas of the center of town. But for me, I wonder the statistics, which we aren't getting, on what we're taking away when we add that. And I also think that there is a great opportunity, and something like Melanie, Councilor Rosacci, presented, where we have the opportunity for takeout and using some sort of public space. But again, it comes back to risk management, and actually having tables on a public space. We need more of a plan, and I'm happy to be part of that plan. But for this right now, as presented, it's not. I'm just explaining my reasoning for previous and also going forward. But again, happy to revisit it when we can do something more positive for more businesses. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the council? Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recognize the request. I was also aware of sort of the atmosphere uptown when these things were happening. I completely understand where people are coming from with respect to other businesses. The uneven kind of dealings with certain groups. I'm supportive of a long-term solution that looks to, achieve some goals uptown that would sound a little bit like perhaps what Councilor Rosacci talks about, as well as what Councilor Allenson would hope for. The permanent spaces outside of restaurants would be great. I know that Wallingford Center Inc. is working on the back side of the restaurants on Center Street. I went to two places in the last couple of months. I went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I went to Emeryville, California. And in both instances, larger scale, but in both instances, they had the sort of infrastructure for what we could easily do with the train station downtown, where you basically have a generic infrastructure inside. There's a whole bunch of businesses that are attached through a QR code. You can order stuff. It can be the central hub. You can eat there. You can eat outside. You can go all. It's a phenomenal model. It would totally work here, and every business would benefit. I am more in favor of a long-term solution. I think that the existing alleyway that's just been redone and painted, I think, is phenomenal. So I think having more attention to things like that in town would come from outdoor dining. So I recognize that as well. But I do think that we can do something, whether it be in the parking lot around Center Street Brewery, up in the Wood and Kaplan lot, other spots in town. I think there's the opportunity to do a lot of things. But yeah, thanks.
Councilor Tata.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to answer Councilor Rivard, I remember one of the issues in the past also was, I think the chairman touched on it a few minutes ago, was setting a precedent of renting the spaces. And one of the arguments against doing this in Simpson Court was that if you put a price tag of $150 per space per month, then what's to say somebody else, another business who's on a town road, or even a resident on a town road can say, well, I would like to rent the space in front of my property for $150 a month. So that was just one thing I'm thinking of that came up as when we were talking. Thank you.
Understood. Anyone else? Councilor Fishbein.
Yeah, just briefly, because, we've talked about this a bunch of times up here, right? One of the things we also talked about is that the rear lot is privately owned. And, they could work with their landlord to perhaps have that there if that's desirous also. So when you get into government-owned property, and we have a heightened standard that we have to, we have to equally protect everyone. But if they opt into, a private arrangement with the landlord for, music and whatever, amen, on that property. That was an option that we had also thrown out there just to get you some of the history. So, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I'm going to open this up now to the public, but I would like to make one request. Nobody up here is arguing against, nobody is arguing against the advantages of having a block party-like atmosphere in the center of town. So I would ask that in the interest of, interest of time, and that we don't spend a lot of time talking about how nice it is. Please don't take that the wrong way. It's nice. It's wonderful. Setting up a DJ, having people being able to dance around, that's all amazing. That's wonderful. I think I'm hopeful that because the motion, the arguments that have been discussed by the councilors have been primarily functional, legal, precedent type questions, not would it be a nice thing. So if we can keep our discussions to the argument that yes, there is a sense of, how many businesses would really benefit. There's a sense of the town basically allocating property, public property, to a business. Any precedent that might be set. Those are the things we're considering. And I would hope that would be any arguments for or against this motion would, as much as possible, focus on those matters, if at all possible. So I'm open now to the public. Barbara Crappy, you are free to speak. I saw you first, but you still need to identify yourself for the record, please.
Okay. Barbara Cappy, 6 Demi Road, Wallingford, Connecticut.
And stay close to the mic, please. Thanks.
Barbara Cappy, 6 Demi Road, Wallingford, Connecticut.
Yeah, we're good.
I vehemently disagree with this proposal.
Okay.
At any point where the town has owned this property, this parking lot, has any form of guidance ever been given to any store, business, bank, whatever, in that property? So in essence, there's never been a contract as to how they could manage their parking spots. Now you are attempting to set up a contract that only benefits certain people to the detriment of other businesses on that block. I want to know, does the realtor there have to pay for his people that come in and possibly want to buy property in Wallingford? If somebody takes over the bank in a business that might be also a restaurant, are they going to be charged? Because what you're doing right now, I don't think would pass the legal snuff test. You're discriminatory in what you are trying to do. You are hurting one business to the benefit of another. And in business, you want your business to grow, you work on it. You don't hurt the one next to you.
Okay.
And because you're going to follow the Walmart pattern. And there's no reason in the world that somebody has to pay those kind of fees and the other stores do not.
Well, the only people that would be paying any fee if we chose to go that route would be for the parking spaces that were closed down for parking, not the ones that remain open for parking.
That, in its sense, I don't think that's going to pass the muster, that you cannot close down a
Well, I'm
public
just saying, you
parking
brought up
space.
the fact, would Carcaney have to pay? No, nobody else would be paying for the lot because it's
I
public
think that's
parking.
discriminatory.
That's understandable, and I respect that.
And I don't think it would pass muster in court. I really don't.
Okay.
And I would recommend to certain members of that business community there that they go to court.
Okay. And thank you. Yes, sir. Yes.
Hold on, let me ask my wife.
I'm sorry, no, hold on. I'm sorry. I recognized him first. I apologize. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Hold on, let me check. Is it okay?
I
don't want to get yelled at twice.
I shut you down earlier to make sure you knew when to get up. Now's your time.
Hi, guys. My name is Steve Belly, and I'm here in support of my wife, who owns Body and Soul Day Spa.
Right.
And I'd like to just first say good evening, Mayor, Chairman Testa, and ladies and gentlemen of the council. Let me be clear why I'm here and why I'm not here, okay? I am not here opposed to outdoor dining. It's a great thing. I love al fresco dining. I lived in Italy for several years. I mean, we've been in business now going on 20 years, and it's been there ever since I know Body and Soul was there. So I'm not opposed to restaurants succeeding. Absolutely not. I'm not opposed to anybody succeeding. We're all striving to make a living, okay? I'm not opposed to a vibrant downtown community. Not at all, okay? My concern is much more narrow, much more practical. The issue is whether public parking that serves all the businesses there and the businesses across the street, because let's be honest, people park there and will run across the street to eat dinner, right? It's a public parking space. Okay, does this serve all the businesses equally if we shut down that part of the parking lot and effectively convert it into a private, commercially used parking area, okay? Or in this case, a space to do business, okay? While the neighboring businesses and customers absorb maybe the negative impact, okay? Especially like people that come to my wife's day spa. Some of them now are actually given a prescription from their doctor to get therapeutic massage in conjunction with physical therapy as a result of injuries or medical conditions and comorbidities, things like that. Some of the people that come to the spa are elderly, and I mean people that, I mean, we had a woman come with her daughter, and the mom was 90 years old. And I remember when the blockade, you know, the area was blocked off for a couple of summers, a couple of times they were like, you know, Lynn, we couldn't get a parking spot in the front. I have to cancel because my mom can't walk up the alleyway. You know, it's an incline. It's just too much for her. COPD or just mobility impedances. And they just canceled, okay? Simpson Court is a shared public parking resource. It was not created for the exclusive benefit of any one category of business or any one business or businesses, okay? Many in that area rely heavily on those spaces for customer access, for the clientele like I just mentioned, who are infirmed, elderly. When parking is removed for seasonal restaurant expansion, the burden is not shared equally. A small number of businesses, in this case 3, gain additional revenue generating space, while other businesses lose parking availability for their customers and in a sense can lose business. That imbalance is what concerns me. I also think it's important to remember the origin of the outdoor dining expansion. Okay? These accommodations were created during a public emergency, during the pandemic, when extraordinary measures were taken for an extraordinary issue to keep businesses afloat. Businesses like restaurants who originally couldn't have indoor dining before they decided, okay, put a barrier up in front of each booth or whatever. So that helped to keep them afloat. I was totally on board. Nobody wants to see anybody cave when that's their living. My wife, however, was not a restaurant and couldn't do massage or facials or pedicures outside in the parking lot. So she had to close for, I believe it was 3 months, before they kind of like eased up on the restrictions and said, okay, you can do certain things, but you got to remain masked and all this stuff. So when extraordinary measures were being taken to help these businesses, that's what it was. Extraordinary, temporary, and I'll say it again, like I said last year, I'll use this word, stopgap measures. What are those things? Those are things put in place temporarily to remedy something that's going to be a blight on the town or on a person or whatever, to buoy them, to help them, to save them in effect. Okay? But that emergency no longer exists. Hasn't existed since 2021, I think, is when we started to take all the restrictions away. Now, I've been up here twice already, actually 3 times. Last year, the council voted in favor of not doing it. The year before, they voted in favor of not doing it. The year before that, they didn't. So for 2 years, effectively, they had, after the COVID implementation, they had extended dining, okay? But at some point, temporary measures should not quietly become a permanent reallocation of public space without a broader discussion, like Councilman Allenson said, like Councilman Tada said, a broader discussion about fairness, equality, and equality of access, long-term planning, and the impact on every business around that area, to include the ones on Lower Center Street. I think that distinction matters, because there is no longer any issue about emergency relief. It's now about whether the town should continue allocating portions of a public parking area to function as private use. I would also respectfully ask the council to consider whether adequate weight has been given to the cumulative parking impact on the surrounding businesses, the accessibility concerns for customers, the precedent that this may or may not set for future requests. Like you said, what's to stop across the street from saying, hey, let's do like downtown on, I believe it's College Street. I don't remember which one of you said it. Allenson, right? Councilor Allenson, you said it? I think it's College Street that actually blocked off. It was a 2-lane road, but they blocked off one half of it, and those are permanently there now for, I believe it's Prime, the Prime Burger Joint, and whatever 3 or 4 other businesses are there. But that's permanent now. That's permanent. So now, effectually, College Street is no longer 2 lanes. But the precedent that this sets for future requests and whether all the businesses can share in this public resource are really going to be called into question. Again, I support vitality. I support what Vice Chair Carmody said. Yeah, I think outdoor alfresco dining is awesome, but let's look at other towns around here. Let's look at Guilford. Let's look at Madison. Let's look at Branford. They have small areas like us with parking that's on the diagonal, like over in front of Knuckleheads and so forth, and they don't take those parking spaces to extend the dining. They say, hey, it's on the sidewalk, that's going to have to be enough. If the town wants to visit this, I believe that looking at it over the next year in sincerity and in earnest is where we need to go. Public parking should remain public unless there's a compelling public-wide benefit that outweighs the burden placed on neighboring businesses. And in this case, I don't believe that that standard has been, I don't believe that that's been, that standard of proof's been met. I don't think we can adequately say that other businesses aren't going to be affected detrimentally. And where do we draw the line? So I appreciate your time. Thank you. and I hope I don't get in trouble when I go home.
All right, I clearly ignored the 3-minute limit on public comment at that point, and I know it was my choice to do so. I'm not looking to enforce that dramatically this evening. It's an early night. This is the only thing left, but I will ask people to make your point as concisely as possible, and so we can hear from everybody, and try not to go beyond 3 minutes if it's at all possible. Yes, sir.
I was going to go next.
I know, I'm recognizing you. I'm going back and forth. I'll get you next.
No problem.
You're up.
Okay. He just talked about how bad it was, and so I was wondering.
Please identify yourself for the record.
What's that? Oh, Bob Burkhart, Wallingford, 68 Simpson Avenue. He just talked about how bad it is. Does that mean he can talk about how bad it is, but we can't talk about how nice it is?
You can talk about whatever you want.
Okay. What I want to say is that people say that it only affects 3 businesses, and that's not true. There's an overflow of people going to the places across the street, Michael's, Archie Moore's, the Bistro, right next door. The Bistro had a guitar player on Thursdays. But it's not just about Thursdays. It's about during the week. Sometimes Gaetano will have a singer on a Sunday. But what it really does more than anything is it brings people together. It brings people together when we spend all our time looking at cell phones or watching TV. We need to be together. We need to talk to one another. We need to sit at a table and converse. And yeah, I'm talking about how nice it is, but this are important things. Our society is divided right now, and we need to get together. Now, I'm wearing purple, and there's a reason for that, because blue and red needs to mix together and be purple. And in this town, we have the same situation with our high schools. I went to Lyman Hall. It was one school. Sheen is burgundy, Lyman Hall is blue, you mix together, there's purple. We need to be one town. And things like the event, watch what happens when we have the dance on the 20th of June. People will come to this town. And the other thing I'm not opposed to is people coming from other towns and spending their money here. I wish our state did that. I wish our state got some more tourism going. Maybe we could set an example for them. So I'm all for it, obviously. You're a good singer, Vinny. You got one of the best blues guitar players in the state sitting right over there. He's the mayor. We'd like to see you guys maybe perform there.
We're good.
You're good, yeah.
Yeah, we are. But I appreciate you bringing that up.
But you're very good. I know I am too. And you know I am too. So we need music. We need art. Go look at the alleyway down in between Half Moon and Gaetano's. The tradition of our town is being painted on the wall. We were known for the Oakdale. Not so much now. This particular hall, we had Miss Connecticut pageants in. Entertainment. We need entertainment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're up. I apologize. I appreciate your patience. What's that?
No time limit?
Well, we'll see how you
John Ross, Sound Spectrum.
Oh, I'm watching you.
So back in COVID days, I started it. It was called Uptown Rhythm. It remained that all the years that we did it. This is the original insurance paper. I talked to the mayor back then, talked to Kurt back then, town risk manager, and it lists it as the parade route, historic parade route, 50-60 Simpson Court. That's what I paid insurance on to have that up there. We were able to bring in anything we wanted to bring in. DJs, fog machines, haze machines, bounce houses, not a bounce house that they can't have in the school systems. We got all of that taken care of. It's not a DJ, It's a selector like myself or Scotty, who's a patrolman in Guilford, who did your thing on YouTube with all the stop signs in Wallingford. Anybody ever see that? Scott Gingras? You should check that out. He did a great job. All right, he's one of my guys that performed up there in that little space. So let's just go through it very quickly. Every week I saw more and more people come up there. Themes of the music were designed by me. I grew up in this town. I played in a band forever, starting at 11 years old. I'm still in the game. I just did Lyman Hall High School's field day. I didn't do the prom. I couldn't stay up that late that night, and I knocked them dead. And the crazy part about it, I got all nervous about it. I thought I was going to have to play all this new hip-hop and all this new Latin music for an hour and a half. All they wanted was Michael Jackson because of the movie. You have to know what you're bringing in. The young lady over here used the word DJ. The young lady over there used the word DJ. It's not a DJ. It's a selector, a person that knows who is coming, what is the audience like, what is the A plan, the B plan, and the C plan. What is the volume of the music you're playing? What is the age bracket that are coming? So that is how we design the themes. Female artists of the 90s, we did that. We did a country night. They wanted doo-wop music from the streets of the Bronx, Philly, and Brooklyn, and East LA. We put that stuff together. It brought so many people in. Do you know how many people I brought to Wallingford by playing senior basketball at the Park and Rec, also playing at Pragnum Park in the Senior Softball League? 162 players play in the Wallingford Senior League. In basketball, we have about 40. I handed out pamphlets. They came all the time. These players are from not only Wallingford, they come from as far as Bridgeport, Hartford, Willimantic. They brought people to Wallingford. Why? Because like Mr. Carmody said, safe. Historic and safe. Great, great atmosphere. You have 7 basic places uptown where this location is. The other restaurants, I understand that also. There's just nothing together and well-knit as uptown there. It's just so good with the parade route. Here's some of the other things that we did. This one boy, Bo Ballo, he's been on Channel 3 3 times doing the weather in all the years. He lives off a Farm Drive over here. He used to come and do the weather on a Thursday night. He was 8 years old. That was his goal. And I understand in his science class this year, he came in first place in the science fair. I don't know where they had it. The last science fair I did, it was here. It was called Robert Early High School, or Junior High School. Okay, so Bo did that. Star Wars. I got my granddaughter to get the characters from Disney World to bring them here. We had to sign a form. I took all that music, all that money, and we gave it to the, I want to make sure I got this right. I got to get this right here. The Wishing Well, okay? We didn't make a lot of money with this. This was a great day. That Star Wars thing was incredible. Didn't have anything to do with the restaurants, didn't have anything to do with the music. It was in a historic location, which was cool. So once again, I think you should check out that thing that Scott does about the stop signs in Wallingford. It's great. Also, we had live entertainers that came. I had graffiti artists that positive messages. Now, all of a sudden, during that alleyway where your restaurant over there, what's that? Gene Grass did that thing, the painting? Absolutely sensational. I started that with easels with the guys out there. They were doing it with markers because I told them no spray cans. So that's where we're at with that. Sarah Donahue, she came time and time again to play her violin for free. Also, how about when the town always needs characters? Celebrate Wallingford. Call Sarah, call Johnny Roz, get the characters. She comes every time. The holiday party uptown that Roz Gallagher runs, the Halloween party that Roz Gallagher does, she comes, she does the costumes and does the things. So to make it really short and sweet, families come together here in this town from all over. They make new friends. They stay off their phones. They get involved with the DJ, interactive dances, games, limbo, whatever else we're bringing. And they even bring their dogs. Everyone smile loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. Yes, please identify yourself.
I'm Crystal Gabout from 36 Sigmund Circle in Wallingford. So excuse me because I just picked my kid up from lacrosse at Choate. So my heart's going a little crazy. But
Hold on a moment, please. Does that mean she's not close enough to the mic?
Oh, we're good?
Yeah, that's better. They can't hear you on that.
Sorry.
They need to record you.
Okay, good. Crystal
Yeah.
Gabout from 36 Sigmund Circle. So I am here for Simpson Court. So at one point I did work at Gaetano's during COVID. Everybody says it is an emergency case. If you have not seen what food costs cost you nowadays, everything is an emergency case. I sell food to restaurants. I know everybody's yawning. I think Mayor Cervani hasn't gotten off his phone once. You guys are probably really irked with this conversation. However, we need to understand what restaurants are going through. Restaurants are going through tomato cases costing $90. Restaurants are going through things that they've never seen. Gas prices, that means they don't go out to eat. And yes, we cannot help all the restaurants on Center. And you guys, I heard you because I watched you all day long, or all night long, excuse me, say maybe we'll make a committee, talk about what we could do for other restaurants. Yes, but how long is that going to take? We already know the Simpson Court thing works. Half Moon, Mr. D's, Gaetano's already has that set in place, so let's make it work. What benefits everybody is that people come from other towns and they drive down Route 5, they drive down Center Street, and they're seeing different restaurants that they might have never heard about before. We have all the mom pop shops. If you've ever been on TikTok, people boast about us. So in order to continue to bring people to this area, yeah, give them Simpson Court, give them that, and then guess what happens? Archie's, Michael's, everybody benefits from it. You don't see anything of this sort in Meriden, correct? And North Haven, I know everybody wants to talk about North Haven, Guilford, this, that. North Haven is not legally allowed to have people outside dining since COVID, and that's the only reason they allowed them. Guilford, Brantford, all of that other things, we're not them. We are Wallingford, Connecticut, and we have been going through it, and our restaurants have been going through it because we are not a chain restaurant company, or a town, excuse me. We need to support the people because then they support everybody back. Our town, listen, I was on the PTO, I was on this, I was on every board you could possibly imagine. Again, I work in food sales. I have watched these restaurants since 2020 or 2019 go through it. If we can just help them, then yes, guess what? Next year, we're helping down the street. We're helping that because we're starting to work at it. You're not building a committee. You're going to tell me this year you're going to do it? You're not. It's probably going to take a year or two. But you need to understand that food costs right now, these people need the extra space. Let them rent it out. Yes, unfortunately, other people cannot. But it benefits our community in a sense that I sell to restaurants from Massachusetts to Connecticut, and people know Wallingford because of that. And they say it's a shame it's not there. So people from Guilford or this, we can't compare ourselves. We're Wallingford, Connecticut, and that should be the most important part of everything. And we need to help them, and then we continue to help everybody else.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, please. Come on down.
Good evening. My name is Heather Williams. I live on 9 Laurel Ridge Court over here in Wallingford, and I also own Mr. D's on North Main Street. I do want to correct something. I haven't participated with outdoor dining since 2021. I have kind of just reaped the benefits from Gaetano's and Half Moon having it set up. We all know the good stuff, the good parts and everything else. Business-wise, it was so beneficial for the center of town. I could give numbers privately. I don't want to say it on the microphone, but it was a big impact we saw and a big loss we saw as businesses being neighbors to what they had going on. it was good when I had the patio dining, but when I didn't, I still felt the overflow in double-digit numbers in the thousands. It was a very beneficial thing towards the center of town. I've spoken to other business owners as well that have benefited as well from the extra foot traffic and the overflow that came from the dining in Simpson Court. Last year, we did put something together that had specific spots put aside so that it didn't impact Body and Soul or any of the other establishments around us, because we want everybody to do well. I just kind of wanted to come up to just put it out there that I only reap the benefits. I didn't have a patio. I know everybody's looping all three of us in there. I don't know. It was very beneficial business-wise as being a neighbor to the center of town dining there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your business? What is your business?
I'm Mr. D's, right next to Half.
Oh, you're Mr. D's.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Go ahead, Kev.
No.
We're going back and forth.
All right, I'll be really quick. I wasn't
We're going back and forth.
Kevin's turn.
We're going back and forth. Kevin.
Turn.
You want to go?
Yes, it's his turn.
I want to go.
Back and forth.
I'm calling him.
Ping pong.
Thanks, man. Kevin Gaetano, 271 South Main Street, Wallingford. First of all, I want to thank all of you for what you do for the town. Sam, bringing it forward again. Most of you have been bringing it forward. Autumn, Todd, I know we talked on election day outside of DAG. Again, it's like Vinny said earlier, it's not an argument, it's a healthy debate. There's people saying things that nobody benefits. I totally disagree. Because first of all, parking is not a problem, okay? There's plenty of parking uptown. No parking uptown is a good problem. That means businesses are booming. Michael's, Archie's, Gaetano's, Half Moon, all of them. That's a good problem to have. As far as, Steve was saying, as far as his parking, that you close at 5, 6 o'clock, the problem during the day is not really a problem parking. I think we need to reinforce the business owners to stop parking in Simpson Court and start parking in the back, so now they have parking for their customers. You see it all the time. If you look, there's cars there more than 2 hours. So that's here and there. As far as the $150, as far as a spot, Mr. Laffey brought that forward 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Thank you. Your son's a hell of a hockey player too. Congratulations at Lyman Hall. But that you brought it forward. Tada was against it. I think this is a good way to bring forward, like Autumn said, that maybe if somebody wants to, if it's not town property, if it's town property and not the state property, you want parking, they do it at College Street, they do it on Worcester Street in New Haven, they do it on Elm Street, they do it all over. If you want to spend $150, then why can't we? Maybe they'll start the whole thing as far as outdoor dining or buying the spots. You won't have to do it. They'll come to you for it. 90% on positivity Wallingford, and I know you guys all see it. That's probably why it came forward again. My sisters, they get bashed on there like it's all them. It's not them. It's coming forward because people want it uptown. We're doing a great thing. You are all doing a great thing uptown with that alleyway. I think we need to show off our uptown. I really do. You guys are doing good things, and I think we need to benefit from that, and we need to show off our town. Guilford, Brantford, North, I don't care where they come from. Johnny said Bridgeport, let them come. Let's show off our town because we have a good town and it's a safe town. And the last 2 years, I drive home. I live right on South Main Street. And I'm driving home on a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night at 9 o'clock. It's like a ghost town. It's embarrassing. It really is. And back in the day when everybody had music outside, my sisters would put music outside. Everybody benefits from it. They're sitting outside and they're enjoying the music. And they didn't have to pay for the band. They didn't have to pay. Everybody benefits. Everybody's in it together. So, again, thank you. I'm not arguing with anybody. I know you're against it, but that's fine. Hopefully, we get the votes, and hopefully we can move forward to other establishments. If they want to pay $150 a spot, let them do it. Try to open that up. Why not? Other towns do it. But again, and one more thing. The police department, as far as you do takeout, I mean, I know if I have a nice Italian dish, I want to have a glass of wine. Could I have wine if I'm sitting on the police department property? Probably not, right? Probably not.
Well, yeah, that's to be discussed.
Anyways, and one other question, as far as the food trucks, bringing food trucks in, I mean, do they pay, I'm just asking a question, do they pay taxes as far as food trucks?
Anything that, none of that has been established.
That's not gonna happen, okay.
Not on the,
All
not
right,
to be discussed
okay.
tonight.
I just, I didn't know, you know. as
No, I
far as-
appreciate it.
But
That's what
thank
we
you
were talking
again,
about.
and you guys, really, you guys are doing a great job, and hopefully this happens because I'm sure we'll all be up there and we'll have a drink and talk about tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, I wasn't going to say anything. Sheila from Body and Soul, and I like for everyone to get along too. About the food prices are crazy, and that's another thing that affects our business. You have a family, you have kids, you're going to go buy food, or you're going to come get a facial. So we're already affected. And Heather, again, second year in a row that she reminded us of how she benefited. And here I am saying how we lost out and how much it did not benefit us. I'm all for sitting around and thinking about it and getting together and, you know, doing the right thing. But as of right now, it actually even cost us money because of the cleanup and all the, what do you call them, exterminators and, you know, the mess that we had to clean up. So.
Could you just identify yourself for the record, because we keep track of everybody that speaks?
Yeah, Sheila Delmonico with Body and Soul.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I mean, I just want everyone to get along, but again, we're not here every year because we're making money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
John Letourneau, 3 Regent Court. Since I seem to be the last one up, let's talk about lampshades.
Hello, John. And welcome.
Thanks.
Former Town Councilor John Letourneau.
Tonight, when you were earlier talking about the budget, I missed being up there. But anyways, I look at this not as what business benefits, what business doesn't benefit, who's going to do more than somebody else. And I look at it, what's good for the whole town. This outdoor dining is not something that, you know, we're just trying out to see if it's going to work. We tried it out. We know it works. Some people talked about it tonight, that the input we got from out-of-town people, I got a tremendous amount of input from out-of-town people that came into Wallingford and said, wow, you guys got a great thing uptown where you can sit outside. You took some parking spots and sit outside. And how did that come about? So I give them the story. To get out-of-town people into town is a good thing because they're the ones that are going to shop. And that's what everything is done in the downtown, is to bring people to the downtown to shop, to eat in the restaurants. After you eat, you go out for a walk and you stop in a store. That happens a lot during lunchtime. In the evening, it's a little not so much because a lot of stores don't stay open for various reasons. That's something that can be discussed with your committee, why stores don't stay open. But anyways, I doubt it's going to pass tonight, but I would love to see it pass. And do it for this year, set up a committee, which I'm fearful of because I've been on committees, and it goes on the Wallingford clock. You know, 1 minute is 1 year in the Wallingford clock. And I've seen committees go 3, 4, 5 years, nothing gets done. Nothing. So I'm very wary of committees. But, you know, to set this up this year, and they're willing to pay to put the blocks out. They're willing to put money into the parking spots. I mean, I don't have a business uptown. My business is downtown. I've been there 26 years downtown. I benefit from that because I can send my customers up for lunch. that come from Branford. I have Wallingford customers, but right now the bulk of my customers come from the shoreline. I do extensive advertising. I spend roughly $15,000 a year in advertising from different venues. And it goes from New Haven to Saybrook. That's my customer base. They come up. And when they come up, they go, where can I go for lunch? I go, what do you want? Well, something not too high. I send them uptown. If they want a heavy dish, I send them to Michael's, or I'll send them to La Piazza or one of the Italian restaurants. But the point being is, it's good for Wallingford. When people come from out of town to Wallingford, it's good for Wallingford, because they're going to go, they might go up and see Body and Soul and say, wow, I didn't know they had a place like that here. What's that about? They go in and ask. The decorator uptown. You know, we don't know what drives people in. We don't know. But this is a good thing. This is a very, very good thing. And I mean, I'm so adamant about it that it's going to cost $800 to put the blocks out and another $800 to bring them in. I'll give them $800. That's how much I feel this is a positive for the town. I will give them $800 for the first to put them out. So hopefully it gets passed. And then have your committee and discussion. But at least do it, get it going for this year, and let's make it work. Side note, the block parties, that's the worst thing that can happen to a business uptown. If I had a business uptown and I had to lose business because the streets were shut down for a block party, I'd go ballistic. So, you know, you got to watch and see. You know, there was, just real quick, a mention about putting, you know, other businesses going maybe down Center Street and being able to buy spaces for in front of their stores. And you can't.
I know.
It's a state road.
We know that.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a niche. It's a niche, but it's a niche that's worked. You're not reinventing the wheel. It's worked. It's a proven. So let's do it again.
Well, thank you, and thank you for volunteering to be on the committee I'm going to establish. I'm not kidding, John.
I stepped in it again.
No, I'm not kidding, John.
I will. I would be.
No, I'm not kidding. You're on.
All right. Okay.
You're on it, John. It's been established.
Okay.
Thank you much.
Thank you all.
Vinny, can I
Okay.
say one last
What? Hold on. There's someone else first. Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Betsy Bates, Maple Avenue in Wallingford. You know, I don't want to repeat a lot, but I was here last year as well. So we heard about starting up a committee. I kept my eyes open. I wished there was a committee that started. I didn't start it. But I would like to what he's just said is perfect. This has been talked out. But let's just do it. And then the committee has some groundwork to start with. Maybe you will have every business in town wanting to rent spaces. Maybe the committee will have to come up with some kind of policy to how many spaces you want to rent. We know that this can happen because it did happen. Administration just said we can make this happen. We do have one business here that is dead set against it, and that's Body and Soul. They were dead set against it before. But just like Mr. Gaetano here said, it's impossible to ignore, for me, it's impossible to ignore the public response in how much they want this. So if you guys are all getting calls all day long from all the businesses saying, we don't want it, we don't want it, then Joe Public, we don't hear that. I don't know that. My husband and I walk uptown all the time. We go to all different businesses. We're not going to not go to Michael's because we have a better seat at Gaetano's. We go to Gaetano's Sunday mornings for a brunch. We bring our dog, we sit outside. We go to Michael's for a different occasion. We were at Knuckleheads the other night. I need to walk more and eat less. I mean, it's great what we have, but it is a niche. It is what makes Wallingford part of Wallingford is. I don't think it continues to be the right thing to talk about, is it a risk and what are the legalities? And because it's happened, so therefore it could happen again. And then your committee could be full of people who either, let's do more of this, or this just didn't work. So I would ask if you could sort of take last year's discussions, which are so similar to what we're hearing tonight, and just give it a chance. I just don't see how we can lose from it. So I hope you give it good, clear, new thought tonight.
Thank you.
One last thing.
Okay.
Sorry. So if it's a go, boom, we're ready to set it up. Should be done like that for June. It won't take any time. Get the blocks, do what you have to do. We're ready to do it the first Thursday of June.
Thanks. Anyone else? I'll return it to the council. Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're not talking about outdoor dining. No matter what anybody has said here tonight, we are not talking about outdoor dining. Outdoor dining went into place in our ordinances in 2013, okay? The town owns the sidewalks. I was part of that process. I was part of the process where the businesses came to us, the restaurants came to us and said, we want to do outdoor dining. And we said, okay. We put together rules that other towns don't have. And we said, yes, you can use the sidewalks. But what I heard about tonight a lot was, well, people like it because we have outdoor dining. We're not talking about taking outdoor dining away. You still have outdoor dining. You still have seasonal utilization of the town's sidewalks for outdoor dining. It's the distinction between the two. Do we take away parking spaces to expand on the outdoor dining? Do the businesses that, and perhaps this is rhetorical, who decides the music? So the music is, it carries. The music is outside. The music carries into businesses that are not involved in the activity. They don't have a choice. We're forcing that upon them. And I've experienced the music, and I'm not saying that it's offensive or anything like that. I'm just, but someone other than the entity that's being affected is selecting the music. We also have the issue with people sometimes, I had somebody call me like 6 months ago. I hope you don't do this again because I live across the street and I want to sleep. In the summertime, my windows, I can hear the music because it's outside, it's not inside. And that's utilization of town property. We heard about people needing extra space. I mean, I guess I'll leave that be, but, the issue is whether or not we utilize town property for the extra space of not everybody that can make use of it. Worcester Street in New Haven, the last time I drove down there, Worcester Street, please correct me if I'm wrong, they don't close down the street and put tables in the street.
It's parking spots.
Yeah, they have,
Roadside parking.
yeah, it's,
They have parking lots. Parking spaces.
Okay,
Parking
but-
lots. Parking spaces in front of the restaurants, they do. In front of Beverly's.
yeah, the last time I went there, they weren't taking away parking in front of the restaurant to put tables. So, at least in my experience.
Their Mother's Day.
I don't get I send customers up to restaurants. I mean, I send customers up to restaurants all the time, from downtown. I just had an event at Michael's last Thursday night. Everybody was eating indoors. You can't tell me that our restaurants aren't busy. In fact, that night, I drove from my office, which is 100 South Main Street. I'm lazy, I didn't want to walk. And I was like, well, let me get a parking space. And I got to tell you, I couldn't find a parking space in Simpson Court, couldn't find a parking space back behind Kaplan's. I couldn't find a parking space on Center Street. I ended up back on South Main Street parking. You know, so now we're talking, and that's on a Thursday night. So I just, in response to what I heard, I just wanted to state my experience. So, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Tata.
Thank you. I debated talking because I don't want to rehash everything from the last 3 times we discussed this, but here we are. I just want to say, no matter how I end up voting, I think, well, at least for me, I loved what we did. So I'm not arguing with any of that. I talked to Councilor Carmody about it earlier today, and I said I just keep hoping that we can find a way to make it more fair, because I really did love it, and for all the reasons everybody said, and Johnny Ross, like, you're great, and your people were great, and when you had the kids were involved, and it was families, it was wonderful, and we went a few times. You talked about drinks, Mr. Gaetano, and I'm a big. I'm a Shirley Temple connoisseur from my childhood, and Gaetano's has the best Shirley Temples I've ever found. So we would go and enjoy that, and it was just wonderful. And we would go to the other side of the street too that wasn't involved, and sit outside there at Archie's or Michael's, and I really do love it, and I want it to come back, but I get so hung up on the fact that we do hear from other people and other businesses, and maybe they don't want to come to a public meeting and say it publicly, but I know I've received several emails and phone calls when this comes up of other businesses that are maybe down the street or around, and they kind of do feel like it's a little bit unfair that government property in essence is being used to benefit 2 businesses. I do think it brings people in. I do see that there's a benefit to others, but that is so Simpson Court is actually, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the police department had told me that's actually a street. That's a public road. It's not just a parking lot. So I think when it has to be shut down for things, they're shutting down a road. So that kind of, I think, brings up a few things for them. So anyway, I'm not. I don't know. I guess I'm always on the fence about this thing because I do love the idea of it, but I do think it is giving. We're in essence. We're in essence providing square footage to businesses that we're really only doing it for 2 businesses in town, and we're not doing that for any other business. And I think that's kind of the issue that I get hung up on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, and thank you. Anyone else? I'm sorry. Councilor Laffin.
If it wasn't a regular thing where you forgot to call on me, I wouldn't look at you like that. Eventually, yeah, because I'm next to you when I poke you. All right. First things first. It's my cousin's kid, not my kid. It's 2 of them, and they're both great hockey players. One's also a great pitcher, and my cousin texted me that they just made the SEC finals, which are tomorrow night for anybody that wants to go, and Liam Laffin is pitching, so.
He's in my class.
Yeah.
He's an incredible kid.
Are you trying to take more credit for this?
I'm trying to take all of it. He's only good because he's in my class. But go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going.
Otherwise, okay, so here we are again, 3rd or 4th year, whatever, fourth year, the post-COVID. So it's interesting. This is the exact deal I proposed 3 years ago when I got booed out of the room. So not bitter or anything. I get it. So that part is very interesting to me. The public response thing, I have to echo what Councilor Tata said. I hear about this all the time, and it is typically not in favor of it. And I'm not saying that I count those things because I look for the ideas and the principles, and does anybody say anything new? But there are people out there that don't love it. I have, as I've always expressed, great concern over the precedent it sets. I hear about the parking all the time. People now, just this coming up, started reaching out. I have trouble enough parking. I echo what Councilor Fishbein said. It's difficult to find a spot as it is now, let alone removing 8 spots that you could potentially fill up, and there's more than 1 car per table. So now it becomes a whole thing. There's a lot to look at and a lot to consider. Attorney Einhorn, you said that this would be easier, or this would work better if you had a lease to bring forward, because otherwise we're just kind of throwing out. I don't even know what.
Granted, I don't know the history that you know, and I haven't been through all these council meetings, so I assume you have a lot of information that I don't. But for me, it would seem more sensible if the 3 businesses that I now know, there's 3 businesses that want to do this, actually went to the administration, the council, both, and presented whatever the deal is. You're kind of presenting your own deal to yourself.
Right. So, I mean, I share all my concerns, as I always have. And I guess I don't understand if we're just kind of making a blanket ordinance change, like for exception, or we're expressing an interest in looking at a lease. I don't understand the full. What's the deal? Like, before, these numbers I threw out was so that something, let's talk about making an arrangement. This isn't an arrangement, is it? This is just, we're throwing something out. So I guess that's my question.
Well, I'll let you go in a second. Interestingly, we would need to, we've made a motion to allow something that would require something further in writing. It would require parameters. It would require specifics. It would require things. So as opposed to normally, you would have a proposal presented to us by the administration for something, because they are doing the business of the town day to day. We're on the opposite side of that. We are proposing allowing something that realistically doesn't have to be implemented just because we vote for it. We've gone through this a number of times, and we talk about the budget and everything else. So this would require the town, the administration, to put together some type of agreement. Doesn't have to be super complicated. It could be very simple. It could be detailed, but it does require something. So I'm not sure if even tonight, if we voted to approve this, that tomorrow, Town Public Works is going to be dropping blocks on Simpson Court, because we can't authorize any of that. So, it's very possible that tonight is the first step in what might be a 2-meeting thing. I don't know. That's what we're here for. We're going to talk about the details if we want this to move forward. I want a few bits of clarification. It could be from Councilor Carmody, it could be from anybody. I'm looking at an aerial view of the Simpson Court. And at the very corner, the very north end, in front of Mr. Dees, there are 1, 2, 3, roughly 4 spaces. The 4th space kind of crosses over into in front of Half Moon. There are 3 more spaces, and then there's a not a crosswalk, but something with a bunch of lines on it where you can't park, which is the alleyway. Now we're in front of Gaetano's. And then there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 spaces directly in front of Gaetano's. And then you're in front of the next buildings, and it moves down. So somebody said 8 spaces. 8 spaces where?
Mr. Chairman, point of order. We are in effect negotiating a contract during a meeting.
No, we're not.
Well,
I just said we would have to do that later. We're not negotiating anything. We're talking about.
You're asking the move-in which spaces he's talking about with I would expect that the next move from there would be to those that would benefit or be on the other side of this contract. Is that okay with you? That is a negotiation.
No, you're saying you're anticipating what I might say next, and I'm not going to say that.
Well, Mike,
I'm basically asking my fellow counselor what he was referring to. I understand what you're saying. Well, we're not going to sit here and negotiate this tonight.
Okay, just my concern is that we talk about parameters, and then a business that is adverse to this situation says, I'll give you $250 a month tomorrow, and that's the concern.
Well, I'm not going to let that happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I'm going to continue talking. So my first, as I'm being asked to consider the motion, I know you're going to answer. I want to know, what are we talking about? And then I'm going to refer to the legal department and the administration to ask what would entail if we were in fact to move forward with something like this. I'm not even inviting the business owners to come up here and negotiate with me. That's not what we're here for right now. They may have had an idea, but that's not what we're doing right now. Councilor Carmody, what you want to clarify your motion?
My motion stated that we would permit up to 8 parking spaces in Simpson Court.
Okay,
So,
and did you already have in mind which spaces they would be?
I think the business owners can negotiate that with the administration.
All right, when you say 8 though, in your mind, you're looking at the...
It's my understanding that in years past, they used 8 parking spaces.
From the end back, like from the corner at the library, in front of Mr. D's, back towards Gaetano's?
I believe that was the case.
Okay, and that helps me envision this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 spaces before you get to Gaetano's. Then there's the alley. Then there are 4. That's why I said there's 4 in front of Gaetano's. So as we're talking about what we might want to see, that might fluctuate. And I would say if we were to do this, I would insist on more handicap parking in other places. So what I'm getting at is if we want to do this, we need to involve the administration and the law department into coming up with some type of agreement that we can then consider again at a later meeting. That's my feeling on this. And if anyone else disagrees, fine. I don't see us, I'm not prepared to vote to allow this tonight because we don't even have the specifics ironed out. But I would,
But can we vote on
vote.
the concept to go to the administration and to move forward, and then at the next meeting, we can vote on the overall package?
We could, I think we could do that.
Okay.
I think we could do that if we amend the motion. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Here we are discussing again.
Sure.
So maybe we don't specify spaces, because maybe the spaces are 12 if we do what we want to do here. I don't know. I think there's more that needs to be negotiated and discussed. But that's my position. And I'm open. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did hear about handicapped parking space, and there are widths that are required for handicapped parking spaces. If we're going to get into, perhaps moving a handicapped parking space, that may call for a total relining of Simpson Court. I think one of the handicap, and please correct me if I'm wrong, just looking at the map, it looks like one of those handicapped parking spaces may be in front of Body and Soul to perhaps accommodate the individuals that were referenced earlier. So I just, logistically, that seems to be all part of this, as you said, more handicap, which I'm always for more handicap, but looking at this, it looks tight. So I just, thank you.
I don't think there's any more than 3 or 4 spaces in the whole place.
Handicapped?
There's one at the very beginning at the bank. There's one in front of Gaetano's. There's one in front of possibly down the ways a little bit more. I don't see any more than 3. I may be mistaken, but I just know that there have been issues raised by people that if you remove any number of spaces, it's going to make it very difficult for those people who are handicapped to get to certain businesses. And their perspective is, maybe I don't get a handicap spot, but I might get another one. So if you're going to take away 6 or 8 or 10 spots, then we really have to make sure that we're accommodating those folks that can't walk up from the back. That's why I said we need to talk about this more. Councilor Allenson.
I just have to ask, initially we're asked to make a decision tonight regarding outdoor dining. Now we're amending it to say, are we going to continue it to have a conversation next time about outdoor dining? I think this really begs the point that we aren't ready to have this conversation yet. And I understand that you plan on establishing a committee, so establish the committee and push it to next year, because this is not the time to be having these conversations and then to be negotiating with ourselves about it. You don't negotiate with yourselves on a contract. So I understand the notion. I understand what everyone's trying to do, but pushing this off to have another 2-hour conversation in another meeting when the initial motion is on the concept to begin with it's kind of off the table. So I mean, I understand that you don't think anything is off the table, but at the same time, how many times?
What do you mean by that?
Well, this is how we kind of go. Every time we want to do, every time there's confusion in the room, it seems like we're changing the process on what is allowed. So can we vote on the motion that was presented to us tonight as to whether we want to visit the concept of outdoor dining for 2026? And then can we talk about a motion to establish a committee for 2027?
Well, first of all, you don't need a motion to establish a committee. I just form it as an ad hoc committee as the chair. Secondly, there's not a motion to reconsider outdoor dining. There's a motion to shut down Simpson Court for a certain number of spaces at a certain time.
Whatever semantics.
That's the motion.
But whatever semantics you want to apply, I understand what we're talking about right now.
It can be tabled.
I understand what we're talking about.
It can be tabled.
It can. To have another 2-hour, if you're not ready, then why did you present it?
I didn't present it. It was brought up by somebody else. It was brought up, and we're discussing it. And in that discussion, it's clear that some people have other issues with it. So we can table it and get those conditions discussed and handled. Because I don't believe the motion as passed would necessarily get it done. But we can vote on it, call the motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but I think it was pre-COVID, maybe 8 years ago. There was a crosswalk from Simpson Court in the middle that went across North Main Street, and that went away. And I asked the police department why that went away, and they did that because they needed more parking in that area. So I just wanted, you can see the thing, and if you look, there's like a curb cut, a detriment. So when we talk about the parking in the downtown, we got plenty. Obviously, that move was made because we don't have plenty. So I just want that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Want to speak?
I'd like to vote on this.
Okay. Very good. So let's clarify what the motion is.
The motion was we permit up to 8 parking spaces at the in Simpson Court to be closed off for outdoor dining. Those spaces shall be rented at a fee of $150 per month per space, and the businesses utilizing those spaces must pay for the installation and removal of the concrete barriers.
Okay. And that was seconded, and that motion is on the table. And for clarification, how do you envision these spaces to be specified? And
through negotiation with the administration.
Okay. As well as the agreement for the payment and all that. So that's the understanding, right? The logistics would have to be worked out by the administration.
Correct.
But we're authorizing the use of town land for that purpose. Correct?
Correct.
All right, so that's where we're at.
Mr. Chairman, just point of information. I
Yes.
believe, Councilor Carmody, I believe in your original motion, you also had the dates of June 1st to September 30th.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anyone on the council? So we've clarified the motion. Been to the public. We brought it back to the council. Anyone else on the council? Yes, Council Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So should the motion pass, I would anticipate that a lease would be presented to us at the June 9 meeting, which is past June 1. And then should that lease be accepted by this body, by the charter, it wouldn't be able to be effectuated until July, because those that oppose could go collect signatures. So that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah. Perhaps,
and then you could have a referendum, and then,
yeah,
you know.
Perhaps a start date is not specified.
Okay.
And it's amended, upon the completion of an agreement between the administration and the property owners.
So amended.
Or whatever.
Sure.
Right? So whenever that happens, that's the date it could start. No? Well, then you're saying,
Because there, under the charter, there could be, so you have to wait the period for collection of signatures before you can act on the lease. And then if those signatures are collected, you're going to have a referendum, which ain't happening this summer, well, maybe towards the end of summer. So I think the way we usually do these things, because usually as, you know, the administration's coming to us with some purchase or some lease or something like that, we usually make it effective upon all legal doings have been exhausted, or some language to that effect. That's what we usually do, so.
The power of referendum refers to any decision that appropriates or commits money. Well, that's different. I'm just saying, I'm looking at that one and to see what the time frame would be. Yeah, when you talk about now leasing or renting,
Mr. Mayor, do you recall, did we have a lease agreement the last time this was implemented?
I don't believe we did.
we're not passing an ordinance, so a lot of the timeframes you're talking about may only apply to an ordinance. The fact that we're making a decision,
Wasn't it an ordinance last time?
what's that?
Wasn't it an ordinance exception?
It was.
An ordinance exception? An exception to what?
But we did do it after COVID, too.
I don't know how that, whatever that motion.
Yeah, we're
whatever that
either
is,
doing exception to an ordinance or we're doing a lease. Yeah.
Why don't we figure out what it was last time and start with that?
Right? Well, I believe we could, as the motion has been amended, it has said pending the, the reaching of an agreement between the administration and the business owners. While that's happening, I would assume we'll find out any and all potential issues that would need to be dealt with, whether it's be a time frame, a holding pattern, whatever it is, right? I mean, you could work all that out, correct, legal department?
Yes, in theory. I mean, there could be zoning issues, there could be appeals.
Any number of things, right? But we say yes or no to it, pending the approval of all the things that would be necessary for it to take place. And we could end up finding ourselves in August. Who knows? I'm just saying, we could vote on it as it is now with an understanding that there is stuff to do. Anybody see it differently than that? All right. Have a roll call vote, please.
Allenson?
No.
Carmody?
Yes.
Fishbein?
No.
Laffin?
No.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Berard?
No.
Versace?
Yes.
Tata?
No.
Testa?
Yes. All right, the motion has 4 votes. It has failed. That's it. Okay. Nothing else on the agenda, right? Seeing nothing else on the agenda, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.